Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian McLogan, and in this video, I am going to do something a little different than I am used to posting on my channel. What I want to do is give you some reviews and some comments that my students left me after quarter two in my class. So one of the common things, a lot of students ask me is, what it's like being in my class and how do my students think about me being on YouTube and recording the lessons and so forth. So I felt that, I should share some of the comments that I receive from my students because every quarter I always ask them, how am I doing? Where are some things that I can improve? And I always try to make adjustments based on their feedback every quarter that I teach a class. And so this quarter is no different. I gave them some questions before they left for break. And I just thought, this would be a great opportunity for me to maybe share some of those responses. So therefore you guys can get an idea of, what my students think about my class as well as my teaching. So what I'm going to do is I have a nice big stack of some papers, and I'm just going to kind of read the question that I proposed to the students. And I like to just kind of leave this as a free write, saying, hey, here's some question prompts. You guys respond to these however you like to. And what I did is I just kind of selected anywhere from 5 to 10 responses, and I'll just read them out how they are. So therefore you guys can kind of get a nice little insight into my class. So the first question I asked the students is, what do you like most about this class? And I'm just going to kind of go through. I didn't want to select all of them because obviously I have a lot of students. And so one of them, first student says, I like the feeling of the class. It doesn't feel like I'm going to be stressed out all period, which is obviously good because math can be very stressful. The ability to do test corrections. I do allow my students to fix their tests and their corrections. So I guess I'll take that as a 50%. Let's see here, at least a couple of these. A lot of them are kind of repetitive, so that's why I didn't want to go through, write all of them. Some things I like most about this class are the flexibility and the leniency. By this, I mean the allowance of cheat sheets and dropping quizzes, along with test corrections. Also, how you don't call on people who are obviously how you don't call on people who are obviously lost. And that's kind of one of those things that, so I allow people to do some cheat sheets, which you're going to hear. That was a common theme. Students really this year, they haven't liked cheat sheets before, but this year, this group of students have really liked the cheat sheets. I drop quizzes. As long as they do better on a test, I drop their quizzes for them. And obviously calling out people, I try not to, I try to make sure people are paying attention, but I guess I'm glad I didn't embarrass anybody that for what they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Let's see here. I like the cheat sheets we got to use. So again, the cheat sheets is basically just like a summary of the notes, and I allow students to use that on the test because the test is a timed test. They don't have a lot of time. And when I previously try to track how students do when they have a cheat sheet compared to when they didn't have a cheat sheet, students really didn't do that much better. But I like the cheat sheet because it helps the students study for the test. And it just avoids them from memorizing stuff that they're going to forget anyways in a week later. So I much rather them, focus on collecting that information. And if they feel more comfortable with having it next to them while they take a test, all the better. Another student says being able to have the cheat sheet and the opportunity to drop the quizzes. Dropping quizzes is always nice. I like the fact that our homework doesn't have to be done on time. And I like that it has a review portion on the homework as well. So I do have the homework. I don't check homework every night just because it's too time intensive for me as a teacher, I believe. When I was a student, I remember my homework was due every day and you had to have it done that day. So I allow my students to, as long as they have their homework done before the test, they can get full credit. And I also have spiral review problems. So therefore we're constantly going back to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and answering those questions to try to keep things fresh as possible. I like the most amount of classes that we are provided extra resources for the content. So obviously you guys can see I make a lot of videos and, those videos and additional documents I have available for the students. Let's see here. You let us use cheat sheets on the test. I like the freedom we're given. For example, not having homework due the next class period is great. And I really hated that when I was in a student because I remember not understanding stuff in math class and then trying to scramble, figure out how I was going to get that homework, turned in the next day. And it was always a stressor. The student says, this class is easy as long as you do the homework. Another thing I like is the test corrections and drop quizzes. In the case you messed up, you can still get some credit. And yeah, that's what I always like. I mean, part of my tests are going to be partial multiple choice, part free response. And, those multiple choice are tough. I used to do tests where they're all multiple choice because it was really nice for me as a teacher just to grade all multiple choice tests. But, you'd have those students that they would just make careless mistakes and they would bomb the test. And so then you had to do a retake, or something like that. And it was just because their grade would count so much on the test, which, a couple students have, because my class is dependent very much on the testing form of that. So that's why I do have a lot of these safety nets for the students. All right, the next question I asked the students was, what do you hate about this class? So I said, hey, what do you guys like? What's working for you? What do you hate? Like, what is not working for you? Some people were pretty honest, and some were kind of just kind of, here's, so-so. So there should be more notes involved. Also, the teaching style isn't that great for me. And again, that's, kind of tough. I'm not sure what they mean by the teaching style. I do provide a lot of notes, so I'm not sure what the student means. As far as on the notes, as maybe some formal notes or informal notes. What I hate most about this class is that the homework is worth almost nothing to your grade. And yeah, my homework is roughly between 5 and 10%, so it's not worth a lot. But again, the reason why I don't have it worth a lot is I allow students the whole class period to have it done, the whole chapter have it done. I also provide them the answers, the worked out solutions to it, as well as then also I provide them a lot like a video of me actually working through the homework. So since I'm providing all that, they really don't even need to know the homework. They could literally just copy it and get points for it. So it does impact their grade, but yeah, 5 to 10%, if you just do all your homework, that's not going to help you pass the class. And that's kind of the reason why I have discounted the homework grade. Everything, honestly. Wait a minute. This student said, what do you hate about this class? This student says, everything, honestly. It's not fun understanding nothing for an hour and a half. And that really hurts. As a teacher, when those students are struggling, they're not understanding it. And again, it hurts because also I've been there. I know exactly what the student is like. You walk into class and it's just like, this is not going to be fun, and immediately you're like, maybe you'll grasp something. And then it's not like 5-10 minutes later, you don't understand something. And then the whole rest of the class, you're upset. So, that student didn't leave their name, which is fine. But, and that as a teacher, I just, I guess the only thing I can do is really try to make sure I can walk around and, try to meet with every student to answer any questions they have. This student says, since math is my favorite subject, it isn't hard for me to hate this class. Only thing is that triggers my bad habits of procrastination. But that is my fault and my fault only. And yeah, that is the one problem with my grading policy, for allowing students to be able to do some test corrections as well as turn in homework late. Not really late, but up until the test, is it allows students to procrastinate. And I try to really push them and motivate them rather than trying to force them to have their work done by the next class period with grading. I hate nothing. That's good. Simple. Let's see. At times it feels very rushed. I don't grasp a concept as well as I could if it was slower. And that is true. Pre-calculus is, very difficult. Well, I guess I'd say as a teacher, it's very difficult for me to try to identify what I want my students to, know and what they need to know. And there's so much content that I could, put into this course. And every year I keep on taking things out. Every year I keep on slimming it down. And you got to be careful, right? Because there's some things, obviously students that are going on to that next level, they need to be exposed to some of those problems. Whereas other students, they don't really need that exposure. They can get the same rigor and the same information just by doing some simpler problems. So it is a balance. But I mean, the class, for the most part, it is, heavy in a lot of content and as well as the pace. Let's see. This student says, I hate that we have to cover so much content in very little time. And yeah, my lessons this year have been basically pretty full. Beginning of the class period to the end. I don't like the way the notes are done in class. I wish we had information first and then we deal with the problems. And this one's weird because I remember last year, that's exactly what a lot of students said, because last year I would try to provide the students with the formal notes. And before I would do the example, I would give them the examples to try to work through, try to figure out. And most students really, really did not like that because they didn't have me model how to do the problems. And again, I was trying to avoid always modeling something. I wanted them to try to explore and work on things, but it was too much of a gap, I figured out, for students to try to go from notes, formal notes, into actually applying them. So this year I've really, I really try to always explain or go through a process first before I have the students teach it. So I'm not really sure what the student was referring to. Obviously, I guess maybe I still do it a little bit more than I'm not used to or aware of. But that is definitely one thing that I had to improve last year based on what students said is, that they did not like as far as my teaching. This student says, I dislike how fast we go in this class. Though I know you can't do much about that because, I do have the district pacing. I dislike the fact that we are always forced to learn a lesson on our own. While the videos are helpful, I personally learn better in class with a teacher. And I agree. A lot of people, for those of you that are thinking like, oh, they can watch on videos. And like most of you that follow me, and watch my videos, you do learn from me on videos. But, my own students, I don't expect them to watch my videos. I provide the videos for them because I know sometimes it can be helpful for students. But, I always try to make sure that I teach everything that needs to be done inside class. If I'm gone for a sub day, I don't flip my classroom. I don't expect them to learn from videos. I make sure that everything that is assessed has been taught directly by myself. And I feel like that is just the fair kind of agreement or contract that I've created with the students, even though I have a ton of content online. And then, so I'm not sure why the student says that I'm forced to learn a lesson on their own because, I guess the only time you'd force to be a lesson on your own is if you missed my class, which I, can't do much about that. I don't like how the skill practice sheets because it's just extra work. And that's something new that I've added this year. You guys have seen me do like 127 factoring problems and like 88 these problems. Well, I give them to my students and they're actually a grade and they're not worth a lot. But, the reason why I gave them to the students is because a lot of those skills they're very weak on. They're Algebra 1, Algebra 2 skills. So by doing a lot of those problems, even though it's a very boring assignment, and it's not worth much. It's just that rote memorization, or not rote memorization, but that practice. But again, a lot of the students, they never received that in those previous classes. They just did enough to get a good grade and move on. And a lot of these skills you can see in pre-calculus, a lot of those essential skills students are struggling in. So that's why I provided them. But I definitely get it. I can imagine if I was a student and I was given 88 factoring problems, I wouldn't be happy either. I hate how all the homework is due on the test day. I honestly think that the class myself, I would understand the previous lesson if the homework is assigned that day, the teaching, then collected the next class. A lot of students don't do the homework until before the test because they realize they don't have to until test day. I just prefer if homework wasn't collected on one day, but it should be collected a lesson earlier. And I totally agree. And I think, my goal and responsibility as a teacher is to try to find ways for students to be able to get their homework done more on time. I just don't feel it is the best use to be able to kind of, strong arm the students to getting their homework done by saying, I'm not going to give you full credit for not having your homework done because you didn't understand my lesson. Because I feel like students learn at different levels and some students need those extra 2 days for them to fully understand what to do for their homework. But it is a problem because there's a lot of students that just take advantage of that and procrastinate. So, for any of you that maybe have some different suggestions, any teachers or any people that have maybe a great way that you do it or that the class that you're in, that really has benefited you, feel free to add them to your comments. I'll be more than happy to take. And actually anything that I say, throughout this whole video, if you have any other suggestions or anything that you do in your classroom as a teacher or that your math teacher does for you that has benefited you, I always like to take a look at those comments and see what you guys have. So feel free to add them in. All right. The next question is, I said, what resources, systems, structures have helped you learn? So basically what is it that I do in class or outside of class that has been beneficial to you, because I'm always changing these types of things. So, let's see here. Number 3, I didn't add as many of these just because, obviously, you guys, it's kind of the same thing. I mostly use the videos on McLogan website and I found that these are pretty helpful and it's nice that the pacing of the class is not too fast for me. So that's good. See, the students, not too fast for them. Obviously all the videos that I post, through class, I do short videos and I do long form videos and I post those privately for my students and then obviously share most of the videos with you guys as well. But that's what they were kind of going through, at least what he was referring to. Let's see here. Another one. I only think like 5 of these, I believe. I feel like the homework helped me learn the most with its consistency. Yeah, so basically every lesson, students are always going to have a homework assignment, which I think is very helpful to make sure that they know they need to have done. The step-by-step videos help a lot, especially when I don't get a specific thing. The answers to the problems help me check my work, and once I understand how to do them. And this is one of those hard things that I was kind of unsure. Like, I like showing the work for the students so therefore they can see, they know what they're doing. But I also know a lot of students just copy my work. I mean, it's very obvious they didn't do any work and they just took my answer. So it's kind of like that, like a lot of them all say they really benefit from it, but are they just lying because they like having the answers and not having to do the work? I don't know. But you know, a lot of them have written in that it's really helpful seeing the videos that I have on my homework, seeing the step-by-step solutions, you know, and stuff like that. So writing the cheat sheet has helped me because it's a little review, deciding what needs to go on the cheat sheets. Like, I know I won't write it down, or I don't know this, and I put it on there. So good. I'm really happy. This has been the first time that students have liked the cheat sheets every single time. Like, I've had so many times people, I mean, even though I allow them on the test, the crazy thing is only about, I don't know, maybe I'd say like 75% of my students do cheat sheets, which is like crazy to me. It's like, it's free. I actually give them extra credit for doing it just because I'm trying to entice them to do it. But still, only 75% of students probably, you know, still even create a cheat sheet. And again, I tell them, you can put anything on the cheat sheet. Obviously not answers. I look for that. But besides that, anything that you don't want to remember, you can have on that cheat sheet. So number 3 says the online lectures and homework guided notes have been a huge help throughout the semester. Cool. The online lessons and homework videos are very helpful. See, again, you can see that student like, and again, I think that is a lot of students, if they do not understand the lesson, they can go online and they can see which problems I do in the homework, and that gives them that just another reinforcement of what they've already learned. So I can see how it is very beneficial for students that want to learn. I can see how, though, it's a big issue for students that don't want to learn. The quiz drop system, the review days, the cheat sheets, the provided answers help me learn a lot. And yeah, so I provide the students a lot of the answers to my old tests. I provide them the test. They can see the answers. They can, you know, work them out. So a lot of students will work out last year's quiz, last year's test, and therefore that preps them for what we have this year, because obviously everything I create is new. All right, and let's see here. Question number 4 is, what resources, systems, and structures have not helped you learn? So I asked them, you know, what has helped you learn? Let's talk about what has not helped them learn, because it's always great to talk great about yourself. What do I do that you like? But let's talk about the stuff that I do that you don't like, that's not working for you. Let's see. There are no resources that have not helped me learn. Okay, well, that's good, I guess. Thank you. I'm not sure about this one. I didn't really select that one. I was trying to find some good ones. All right, so the reviews at the end of the homework aren't very useful, but they still helps me remember past lessons. And yeah, that's the point. A lot of students don't like the reviews because I don't post the answers to them just because I didn't have time to do it. So they don't like doing them because they can't like check their work on there. But I think it's really important to do the spiral reviews. So therefore you don't have to study as much when it gets time to exams and final sessions. Now, obviously I do provide a lot of work and stuff for my students. So, you know, I know there's not a lot they're not going to like, but there definitely was some things. I learned everything, so nothing really didn't help me learn. Okay, well, I know there's a couple bad ones. The what you need to know paper. So that's something you guys see on my channel. I do those what you need to know. Again, it's extra work for my student. It is a grade. But I thought those have been really beneficial. So I'm sad to kind of hear that the student doesn't like those. I mean, I can see why they don't like them. It's just more work, and it's not really work that you're going to see on a test, but it is work that students see throughout the chapter that a lot of them have forgotten or they need to refer. Like, for instance, Pythagorean theorem. Like, that's something you need to know. And a lot of students forgot it. They don't remember it. So, you know, you go through the Pythagorean theorem. So therefore, when we address it in class, I don't need to like reteach that, or the quadratic formula. You know, some of those big concepts that were taught in other courses that a lot of students just don't remember. What you need to know is, again, kind of useless for me because the material ends up getting harder. It just feels like busy work. Let's see here. Let's see, number 4. I have not watched a single YouTube video since everything I know is on the website. So yeah, well, that's good. I mean, most of my videos, obviously I share a lot of the videos with you guys that we have, but they do have a lot of longer form ones for that. The assignment logs seem like unnecessary and the amount of homework. So, I mean, I give them homework. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure, what they mean by the amount of homework. I mean, maybe the amount of questions and how long it takes, but here we go. Number 4, personally, the videos do not help me learn that much information. However, I don't understand the problem that they are helpful. I rarely watch the videos because they aren't beneficial for my learning style. And there you go. Like, that's why I don't want my students. That's why I never really bought fully into the flipped classroom. I always just felt it was just, catering to like one type of student that really only likes to learn how you guys mostly are watching my videos. But I don't think it was beneficial for like everybody. Not a lot of students I know don't like videos. Like, I probably couldn't learn. I mean, I do watch math videos and I can learn from the math videos, but in the same respect, I much rather be in a class with the teacher, and asking questions, especially when I got into those upper level, higher math classes. Nothing in by there. So most of my resources are good, so I didn't have to not going to plan on really making too many, actually no changes really in the resources, really just making more. All right, so question number 5 and 6 are my kind of favorite. So question number 5, I basically asked the students, and again, this is the question that I would ask you guys. Because again, the same thing, like you're on this channel, if you even made it to this part of the video, you were maybe kind of curious. But I think now that it kind of comes in this part is, it's interesting to see what I do in my class or what you're doing in your class, but, and we can always complain as far as this teacher does this or, my teacher does that. And we could, but it doesn't matter if I provide my students everything they need to know. Not everybody, as I mentioned, 75% of the students were taking advantage of the cheat sheets, right? Not every student that, I had students that had like an 89%. And I said, why didn't you do test corrections? Well, I don't know. I'm like, if you got a C on a test, and even though you didn't know, like, you should be doing test corrections. Like, if you want to be a B student, if you want to be an A student and you get a C, you should do test corrections. You should not wait until the end of the quarter, especially not wait until the teacher says, hey, kiddo, you need to do your test corrections. So not everybody takes advantage of things. And I think that it's a vulnerability to just leave or to, make an excuse as far as what you are provided a lot of times with your teacher, because a lot of things you can't take control of, or you can't I don't know, I guess I'm getting words out, so I'll just get back to my script, not my script, but wording these. But you can't control a lot of that stuff. So the best thing is, what can you control? And that's what I was basically asking students. I know my learning style doesn't match all of them. I know many of them don't watch a video of mine, or they were really, really lost. They did not understand Algebra 2, or they came from a different school, whatever may be the case. So my next question was, how can you do better in the second half? And this is the exact same question I want to ask you. How can you do better in the second half? Regardless of what happened in the first half, regardless of what you cannot control as far as your teacher, your school, your whatever's happening in your life. There's so many things that make an impact on your education, but what is it that you can control in the second half? So I'd like you to think about that. If you are so brave and a part of this community and you want to add in some comments, I'd love to hear what you have to say. But I also understand that a lot of you, want to hold that in, maybe just want to write it down on a sheet of paper and then open it back up at the end of the school year and see if you've kind of met those goals. But here's what some of my students said. They said, how can I do better in the second half? I can take more organized notes and I can put a little bit more effort into this class to get an A. But besides that, I feel like I'm doing well with the resources provided. Get my homework done every night and be prepared for the next lesson. I can do better in the second half by not waiting till the last minute to do my homework and doing it before the quizzes, as well as utilizing any form of extra credit like the chapter reviews and chapter cheat sheets. That's exactly it, taking advantage of the resources that I have in the class, as well as doing what the students said that all students do, is wait till the end. I can do better in the second half of this class by probably actually putting time into studying instead of relying on memory a lot. Do the homework on time. Get no sleep and study nonstop. Perfect. I can study more and turn in my homework before the quizzes rather than the test day. So I can pay more attention to class and complete as many example problems as possible. I can do better. I don't want to procrastinate. I can do better by getting a tutor and working on my homework schedule. Student says, I can do better. I can definitely do a lot more time for this class and my homework on time. Also work on procrastination. I know doing well is now these concepts are easier, but I need to really focus on that second semester and stop procrastinating. Let's see, make sure I don't make simple mistakes on free response tests. Do the homework and complete the lesson. I don't know. I could do better by actual studying. I could do better in the second half by making sure I stay up to date with homework. Let's see, if I do the homework after each lesson and make the cheat sheet for the test, I can do well. I can do just as well or even better. And yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, like the formula for success in math class, besides the fact of like, you know, understanding math and, you know, whatever might have happened over years and years. But the basics, you know, I tell my students is if you do the work and you ask questions when you don't understand things, that is going to get you by, you know, 95% of the students. That's all they need to do. I understand some students have been in my, you know, joined my class and they, you know, are, you know, going through so many other things, either with math or in life that, you know, the classes really struggle. But majority of students, if they just complete the work and ask questions, they can understand the content and concepts for that class because they got there for a reason. I can do better by doing the homework. I can do all my homework. In the second half, I can do my homework and the day it's assigned. I kind of forgot now that I'm reading them all over how many students are not actually doing their homework, which you can see is a very common trait here. And again, this is something I harp to my students. So I don't know, maybe it's something, maybe I do need to change how my homework is provided. I can do better by trying to take time away from doing other classes, work to do yours. Yes, I'm not an AP class, so a lot of students, you know, are taking AP classes and they focus on those classes over mine. Let's see. In the second half, I can do better by reviewing for tests and quizzes earlier rather than the night before. That's absolutely true. I can also make cheat sheets as we go through the units rather than them all at once, which I definitely tell the students to do. I think it's very helpful. And then do my homework earlier and go online to learn stuff. In the second quarter, I can just study harder because I haven't put in all the 100% yet. And do my homework more often. Very good. So I think you can see in my class, I'm not sure how this relates to all of you guys, but my class, my students are just not really getting the practice in by doing their homework. And if they are doing it, they're doing it at the end. They're allowing my class, you know, how my class policies are to take advantage of that. And, you know, I don't know. I welcome any advice that you guys maybe have for that because I'm not sure I want to go back to, you know, checking homework every class period and also rewarding students that understand something within a day, but, you know, and penalizing students that don't understand the material from the lesson. But, you know, trying to find that way to get students to get their work. So the last question, guys, before I end up this video is how can Mr. McLogan do better? So that was my last, you know, how can you do better? Great. You know, reflect on yourself. Now tell me. And, you know, I just say, hey guys, you know, whatever you want to say, like I listen, this is where I make changes. So I don't really feel like I got anything or enough of a theme from what resources and systems were not working. So let's kind of see if there's anything in here that kind of comes a theme now that I'm going to read all these responses all at once. How can Mr. McLogan do better? Honestly, just keep being joking, funny teacher. It lets me know that I can do my work while still messing around a bit. If anything, having a teacher that's not all the way serious has made me a better student. And that's very, very nice. Not something I was common when I was asking for what I can do better. So it's really nice to kind of read that, you know, because I try to be a little laid back and fun. You guys don't get my full personality on every video, but it's good. Go slower. Also, when the students ask for help, don't just mark their paper up and give them some explanation as before. So fair point. I'm not really sure about doing that. I would obviously, I understand the slower part. I talk really fast, especially my videos, which many people have already commented on. And, you know, in class, as I mentioned, it's very fast paced and we sometimes, a lot of times go through things very fastly. So I definitely get that. I can't think of anything Mr. McLogan needs to do better. That's very nice. I'm not sure I can do better. He already gives thorough explanations on most things. Provides lots of practice and examples, has multiple resources that can be used to help, and usually has time after class. Well, come on, student. That's just buttering up. I want to get what are some things I can improve? Maybe slow down a bit. There you go. I know that. Just a bit so we can have time to process the information in the lessons and ask questions during our time over practice to put on the board. So, you know, that is, again, as I mentioned, that's one of those tough things that I got to deal with as a teacher as far as teaching this course. Just more explaining, less board practice. So that's interesting. A lot of times I have students go up to the board and work through examples rather than me teaching. I only try to do lessons a couple times, me teaching, and then I have them do the problems on the board after I've already taught it. The problem with that, though, is it does take more time. And that's why a lot of times my lessons are rushed, because I try to fit that in there. But whereas a problem would take me 5 minutes to do, it takes them to go up to do it, then put it on the board, then to explain it, 15 minutes. So when you have really deep lessons, you can see how the content can be rushed. I like everything the way it is. I have a good grade, and that reflects, and that's always good. Don't ruffle the feathers if you have a good grade. When someone doesn't understand, slow down just a little bit. And that's that's one thing I think I got to work on as a teacher, is keep on gauging where students are at and trying to, maybe slow down for instruction. Every class is different. Every class I do teach a little bit differently. So, reflecting on that, in real time. Mr. McLogan can do better by not rushing. So much we're always trying to beat the clock, and we move away from concepts under the perception that the majority of class understands, which may be an overstatement, which I definitely agree. And I tell students all the time, I know when I'm teaching something, a lot of students aren't going to comprehend the material right then. It takes a couple of days, and that's why I don't like having them do the homework all the time. But, also maybe thinking about how I can maybe deliver the lesson to help students maybe reinforce some skills while slowing down a little bit as well. The definitions confuse me. I feel like if you didn't show it on the PowerPoint and just explained it in your own words, it would help me personally. I don't know how others feel. And yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I do give my students the mathematical definitions just like they would be looking at a textbook. But a lot of those don't help me. But I do provide them just because I want to make sure that mathematically students are still seeing what is being provided and not just given some, term, everything in layman's terms, and then making a mistake because they didn't understand the true formal definition. Mr. McLogan can make sure there are no mistakes on tests or quizzes. Yes, sometimes, I create all my tests and quizzes, so I always make a mistake here or there, which usually we have to address, which is annoying for me as well as for the students. Make sure the lessons are more interesting than entertaining. So, it's math, and I agree, I can do better. Honestly, you can't what you're doing now. It's great. It works for me. Well, it's very good. Good to hear. I don't have any specific ideas how Mr. McLogan could help me do better in the second half. It's nice to hear. If you give the information on PowerPoints to us in more coherent way without having to change the information midway or next class. And yeah, that's the problem. So this year I do teach a lot. I don't teach off of the PowerPoints, but I just kind of use that to do the flow of my lesson. So therefore I'm not always writing. Like last year, I just wrote everything on the board and it just was so time intensive. So this year I try to prepare as much on a PowerPoint. So therefore I can kind of follow the pace of the lesson the same. But again, like it's tough. Like I do have to make changes throughout there and it's confusing. And so hopefully that's an issue this year. That won't be an issue for future classes. Mr. McLogan can welcome more questions and spend more time on what we're confused on. Totally agree. It is kind of always difficult, because you can get down that rabbit hole of the questions. Like I said, when I do a problem, it can take me 5 minutes. When I have students do a problem, it can take 20 minutes. And sometimes that's a good use of time. Sometimes that's not a good use of time. Sometimes students take advantage of those 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes students waste those 15, 20 minutes. So I totally agree with the student. I think it also just kind of comes into making sure you are making sure I am addressing the questions as they need to, but also making sure I'm making the most use of time. Mr. McLogan can do better by making sure the students receive the information they need each class and not writing it all on the board in the last 5 minutes. I hate when that happens. I absolutely cannot stand it. But sometimes it just happens. Sometimes, classes get unruly and we don't cover as much information, or sometimes students just don't understand something and it takes us forever to do it. And I've really been these last couple of years, I've been really strict on maintaining a schedule. So therefore that we can, make sure we're meeting our deadlines in this class. I mean, because we do have to, meet certain thresholds, each quarter. And so I tell students, hey, this is what we need to cover this class period. And if we don't cover it, at least I have the resources that are available to them and I make myself available after school. But I do hate when a lot of times a class doesn't go the way I expected it. And then we have like 2 or 3 more examples at the end of class. That's not how learning should happen. So I do appreciate the student making sure they let me know about that, because that's something I got to fix. Maybe allow students the opportunity to do worksheets together in class. Teaching one another has helped me in the past, and it's better if it's a cheat sheet instead of a couple of problems in between slides here and there. Yeah, and I agree. I wish I could do more copies, like printouts of the problems that I give the students. The problem is it takes too much copying and paper and ink, to be able to always give students printables basically to work them out. So that's why I put the problems on the PowerPoint, and then we put the problems on the board and have students work it out that way. But they do work out in groups, so they can help each other that way. Wish you would go through the note slide so fast. Other than that, I can't think of any way for you to improve your class. So yeah, I totally get it. I know it's, and again, like a lot of the notes, I just tell them like, I have the notes available online. I don't want you to spend 10 minutes copying down my notes, but a lot of students are so used to copying down notes, so they don't really understand that. So, or they don't want to like listen to me. They're like, you're giving me notes, I want to write those down. So that's kind of difficult. I got to maybe think about a better way that I can have that provided for the students. Let's see here. Stop rushing through the lessons. I think we can see the theme here. Just writing out steps and have one ideal example problem with all the steps written out and how you got there. I think it would help at least half the class. And I agree. And that's actually one thing I'm working on this year with all mine is, I have these lessons that you guys have seen on YouTube that are like really expansive. I do a lot of examples because students ask for it. They're like, you can't just teach me one example and then expect me to do it 5 different ways. Like I need to see more variety. So that's why I do like provide a lot of variety. However, it's also very difficult for students to digest, 7 or 6 problems in one class period, even though a lot of the things are the same. So, obviously I only teach one and, usually 1 or 2 examples in a class. But students, when they go home, if they have that many examples, I think it's a lot. So one of the things I am working on doing is actually simplifying my notes or creating some new like kind of process sheets where it's basically telling the students step by step what you should do and then only doing like 1 or 2 examples from there. And then from there, if they need more examples, obviously that's why my class notes will be able to help them out. And last response here is I think that you're doing fine, except sometimes when you talk aloud about stuff before class, which is sometimes waste class time. And I totally agree. It's kind of weird that student, said that though as well, because I kind of noticed like the one way that I beat tardies is right when the bell rings, I always used to do like housekeeping items, and talk about things. And I just realized that students knew there was nothing important that was going on at the beginning of class. So the last 2 weeks, I've actually, right when the bell rings, I just stop whatever I'm doing and I start talking and getting into the lesson. And therefore students, if they show up late, they know that they immediately missed something that was important. So it's kind of funny the student said that because I totally agree, but that was about 2 weeks ago. And I really plan on continuing doing that for the rest of the year. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That is a little insight. I look forward to kind of doing this again at the end of the year, and we'll kind of see how those maybe responses from my students change by the end of the year, see how they do for that second half of my class. But I hope you maybe just listening through my students, maybe have some reflections of your own. And, hopefully your teacher always is, wants to kind of hear from that input. But again, even if they don't, you don't let that impact you, how you're going to do in your class. You can see that every question I always, a lot of them was asking, what could I do? What was good? What was bad? But I also students, what could they do? What are things that you can improve? How can you understand the material better based on what you have? And there's always ways that you can look inside, yourself and say like, this is what I can do better. This is what I can take advantage of, that the student is providing. And, so hopefully some of these have maybe given you some inspiration, as well as maybe some ideas that you can apply for this rest of the year. So I wish you guys all the best, and I will see you guys on the next video. Cheers.